in order to prune, and prune well, you need to have good tools, quality tools, and sharp tools. Let me tell you a little anecdote. Masamoto, author of Epitaph for the Peach, about his family's peach orchard in the Fresno area in California's Central Valley, talked about his dad in his latter years, saying to him, I can see the soles of and the pruning scars of every pruner who has ever made a cut in my orchards. Now, mind you, he was out there in the orchards for more than 50 years and he had more than 50 acres. Hey folks, that's a lot of cuts. But it's true. As a pruner, you're known by the quality of your cuts. Another thing in that regard, it's more perfunctory, is making a clean cut is the road to quick calcing of the wound and healing and recovery. So let's look at some of the tools available. Again, as with so many professions that use tools, you get what you pay for. Hand shears. What you want is what are called bypass pruners. That is, the blade bypasses the other component here, not the more clunky and cheap anvil pruner. There's an anvil and boom, like that. It makes a ragged cut and it's hard to get a good heal. When you look at hand pruners, there's one variety that's been the top of the line for 40 years or more, and it's a Swiss concern called Felco. Very good tool. They make a number of different sizes. My fave is number 2, good old number 2. And it's just an easy to manipulate, well-balanced tool. About 8-10 years ago, came onto the market an even better pair of hand shears. And its origin is a little bit obscure, but it's made by a big Japanese concern called ARS. Now, we don't actually know what the letters stand for, but around the shop we say always really sharp. The hard tempered blade is amazing. For instance, I've had these for approximately 18 months and I haven't sharpened them. And let me add, I haven't needed to sharpen them. They keep the sharpness incredibly well for a long period of time. The other thing is it's slightly different than most hand shears. It's a quick release thing. So you simply put pressure on the handles and it releases, almost like you're a gunslinger, but in a peaceful manner. The other thing, it's just the best balanced tool I can think of. It just feels right as rain in your hand, and the cuts it makes are amazing. So you would want to, at the beginning of the pruning season, do a thorough sharpening of your tools. But as you go day to day in the morning before you go out to cut, and if you're cutting for an extended period of time, every hour or so, you just stop and using any number of quick stones, you just put a lick on your edge here, actually about 25 or 30. These blades are beveled at a 23-degree angle, and you just follow the bevel, and after you've done a few licks, you just do 1 or 2 on the back side because you tend to build up a burr there, and you're good to go. And you'll notice if you're doing appreciable pruning, this resharpening really picks it up in terms of the precise and sharp cuts. So you want to protect the tree, of course, but you also want to protect yourself. Weary bones are a pruner's bane. You can get carpal tunnel really quickly if you don't have good functioning tools. So moving up the line, one of the jokes is, when do you know to move up from a smaller tool to a bigger tool? And it's all about the grimace. If you're grimacing, time to move on. So again, brought to you by ARS. Really light, really easy to wield, good leverage loppers. ARS again. And one important component of any lopper is this bumper here. It's a shock absorber. It really reduces the reverberation and stress. And this can cut through about an inch and a half wood. Clean. Moving up, ladders are functional, but ladders are clunky, and ladders are a bit dangerous. So using long arm pruners, I have a nice 4-footer here and a 6-footer here. is an excellent way to be able to make cuts from the ground with some pretty good precision at height. And again, it's ARS, and it's all about reach and grasp. Let's scoot to the end of the table here and look at the heavy-duty stuff. These are two variations on a theme of long arm pruners with good leverage. If you look at the handles, they're much like pruning shears for shrubs, and they really give you good leverage. Got the shorty and the 6-footer. Now these, when kept sharp, in addition to giving you good leverage, can cut through almost 2-inch wood. So where you might have to be up a ladder and using a saw, you can just go, and it's like a hot knife through butter. And speaking of saws, let's cap it off with, again, go for the best and forget about the rest. Again, ARS makes the best hand saws, and they make a number of different types. One is alternately called Silky, and it has made by a Japanese concern, and it also has the brand of Zubat with an umlaut. Go figure. And this is just simply a different variation on a theme, ARS. This one is called the Turbo Cut. I love it. And around the shop, we referred to this arced one, the Silky saw, as the Power Blade. So let me say another thing or two about hand saws, which is that they're not like carpentry saws, they are pull saws. So you put pressure on and you pull, you release, you put pressure on and you pull, and you release. So there's a good arsenal, in a peaceful way, of tools, and you want to get good ones, you want to keep them sharp, and you want to use the appropriate size tool for the wood you're cutting. In an effort to have good functioning tools, in addition to keep buying quality tools, keeping them sharp, you might want to just simply clean them from time to time. You can use a disinfectant, the Clorox type thing, and just give them a little squirt from time to time like that. You can also use the ever reliable WD-40 just to keep the moving parts functional. And also, when you're doing this, you can wipe off the debris that tends to accumulate on the blades. Some folks are really insistent on using some sort of disinfectant like a bleach or a Clorox every time they make a cut on a tree that has a disease. I don't find that to be necessary. What I do instead is simply to cut into clean and uninfected wood. Let's look at the array of pruning tools that are available to you. Let's start out small and progressively move to bigger tools. I'm going to start with hand shears. And you want to get yourself a good pair of bypass hand shears. This is the variety ARS, and it's the top of the line. So I'm going to make a couple of cuts with this tool, and I'll do the same thing progressively with the bigger tools. And I'll try to put it into context a little bit, explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because with pruning, there really should be a rationale for every cut you do and don't make. And you should have in mind what your expected tree responses are to your cuts. I am doing this for this reason, and this is the response I expect. Okay, let's make a few cuts here. Let's look at this branch here. This is a pluot in bloom, a little past full petal, but still marvelously in bloom. And I have a nice branch that comes up here, arrayed with flowers, and that's good. I have an issue with this branch going back into the center. And so I'm going to thin it with my hand shears. So I'll just slide in here and make a cut at the point of origin of this branch and put it on the ground. Let's do another hand shear cut. Let's look at this branch here. This is a nice branch coming out and up, branching a few times again, loaded with flowers. And this is a little bit too much, a little bit too tall, and a little too vigorous. So I'm going to make what's called a shortening cut, where I cut into 2-year-old or older wood. And one of the things I like about pruning stone fruits when they're in full bloom, it's very easy to see where the vegetative buds are, and in this case, where the fruit and flower buds are. So I'm going to shorten this to a set of flower buds, which will produce fruit. And I'll do it just like this. That's about what I can sustain there in terms of height and weight. Let's move up the ladder, as it were, a little bit, and a bigger tool, nice loppers. These are high quality tools, and one of the components of what's important on loppers is a bumper. Just breaks the tension a little bit, makes it easier on your joints. So I'm going to take a look up this branch here, and it goes up and out and branches a few times, and then I have this vigorous lateral going up right here, and it doesn't have a lot of active fruit wood at the base. It has some flowers at the top, but the issue here is this is too close to that, so I'm going to thin it with these loppers. So let me just position them, and then we'll make the cut. Good. Let me see if I can find another instance where I might want to use these loppers. Let's look at this branch here. It's a nice branch, and it goes up about 8-9 feet tall, but I want to make it a little shorter, just down, I want fruit down in this area where I can access it from the ground. So again, I'm going to use my loppers and make what's called a shortening cut. Okay, let's look up this branch here. This is effectively an 11, maybe 12-foot tree, and I'd like to bring it down in height a little bit. So again, I'm going to make another shortening cut, cutting slightly into older wood. And I'm going to use this nice 6-foot long arm pruner here. So I'll go up, grab it, and then we can make the cut. Now, I brought that tree down a little bit. It's still a ladder tree, but I don't have to go up quite so high on the ladder. And for every foot or so above 8-10 feet you go, it's questionable whether the amount of fruit you would get at that height is greater than the amount of shade you would throw down into the core of the tree. So I chose to shorten that branch a little bit. So if you're needing to cut big wood at height, these two tools are excellent choices. 3.5 foot and a 6-foot long arm pruner. And again, one of the advantages of using these long arm pruners is you can do so much from the ground and avoid the need to go up and down ladders and to set and reset ladders. So this will speed up your work, and it's also safer. This is a step up. In fact, I call this tool leveraged power. You ought to get you some. It's a 6-foot long arm pruner with quite a big blade up here. You can cut through almost 2-inch wood, certainly 1 3/4. So you can prune at height and prune at height with a pretty big bite, as it were. Again, the leverage part of it is you get quite a bit of torque here with this compared to just a squeeze handle. So let me look at a cut I want to use this tool with. Okay, I'm going to advance our rationale here, which is I have 2 wings on this part of the branch, and I want to make this tree slightly shorter, so I'm going to thin the more vigorous one and leave the shorter one, which also has maybe arguably more fruit. So I'll just pull the trigger here. Like I said, I love this tool. Most long arm pruners just have a small bite, but this has a big bite. And when things go right, it's almost like a hot knife through butter. Let's demonstrate the use of a good pruning saw. This is an ARS product again. It's called the Turbo Cut. Around the farm we call it the Power Arc, and it really cuts effectively. So let's look at this branch here, or let's look at this complex here. I'm going to advance the rationale that I want to thin this branch because it's kind of close to these other two main branches here. And especially when you get up top, it's shading and crowding. So these saws are pull saws. So you put pressure on, you release, you put pressure on, you release. Let me make the cut. And let's look at what I've done here. I've cut it somewhat flush to this main branch, but not absolutely. I cut to what is called the collar. You see this ringing here. Branches are compartments. If you cut literally flush to this branch, you leave the compartment door open and disease can get in. So just a little bit of a quote-unquote stub. So there's the issue of which tool to use when and on what size branch, and it's kind of common sense. Friend of mine once said, when do you know you need to move up from a smaller tool to a bigger tool? And this fella has a beautiful smile, and he was showing the smile while he moved into the cut. And he was saying, basically when you start to grimace, or you can feel pressure on your joints, you should move along to a bigger tool. You'll make a cleaner cut and it'll be easier on your body. When to use any of the various long arm pruners, a 4-footer and a 6-footer in this instance, is kind of common sense. How high do you need to reach? And one of the limitations of these exquisite long arm pruners is that the bite or the cut isn't that much bigger than your hand shears. So you can cut little wood up high, but not big wood.